I only ended up reading 46 out of 50 books this year. Hi guys, welcome back to another book club video. This is like my second video of the new year. I am behind, okay? I'm still recovering from being sick, so if you can hear it a little bit, it's there. I wanted to film this video at the end of 2024 and then time got away from me, but here we are, first week of 2025. Well, first posting week. It's not actually the first week anymore. We're a little past that point. But I wanted to talk about my most recent reads. My goal for this was to do like 6 months and then 6 more months once I hit my reading goal of 50 books a year. But I didn't hit that goal. I only ended up reading 46 out of 50 books this year. So instead of 25 books, the video is going to be about 20 books that I've read in the second half of the year. The first one is already up. I'll link it down below and I'll put it at the end of this video in case you do want to watch that. I think you guys really liked that video, so I'm excited for this one as well. I was gonna film and post this video after a vlog and then I got sick and I haven't vlogged and I've been rotting on the couch. So hence the two back-to-back sit-down videos. Please just bear with me and understand. Of course, we have the massive coffee to accompany us. What kind of video would I be filming if I didn't have one of these? Just saying, just saying. Like, I have this big white gap here because this is where I'm gonna pop the book and my rating on the screen. So if you're new to the book club videos, I do different kinds. I've done reading vlogs, I've done these like sit down videos, I've done bookstore vlogs, and we're back with another one. I'm gonna share all the books I've read second half of 2024. All of them I actually did read on my Kindle as well. I got a very basic Kindle as my birthday gift last year from Tyrant. It's like, I'll link it down below. It was like $99 at the time. It was on sale and it is probably the best present. I use it all the time. I'm pretty sure every book I mentioned in this video I read on Kindle, if I'm not mistaken. Also, a lot of the books that I read on Kindle are cheaper on Kindle. I don't have Kindle Unlimited. So we're gonna get into it right now. I had a weird flow with the reading towards the second half of 2024. I stopped reading for almost 2 months, which I've never done that. I read one book in October, no book in November. Also, side note before I get into it, just gonna throw this out there. I give my books high ratings. I just do. I reserve the 5 stars for like perfection. I wouldn't change them, but like most things are close to a 5 star. So if you see a lot of like 4s and 5s, don't be surprised, okay? I'm just gonna throw that out there. All right. Let's get into it. Hidden Picture. This was one of our book club books. One of my friends picked this one out. It's this like thriller. Basically, it's about this woman who becomes this nanny for this young boy. She ends up like discovering some weird drawings and this artwork that this boy is drawing that's very disturbing. And she's like trying to like figure out like what they mean. I gave this book a 5-star. On TikTok, some people are like loved it and felt like how I did and were like so shocked by the plot twist in it the whole way, and then other people were like, this was stupid, like I don't understand why people like it. I absolutely love this book. We all were so shocked by the plot twist in it. I'm not gonna even like give any hints, nothing, but there is a big old plot twist and it was shocking, okay? Gave this book a 5 stars. I very much enjoyed it. The next book is a novel love story. I gave this one a 5 stars too. I gave a lot of books a 5-star, okay? This book is definitely more of a fiction romance type of book. The main character's name is Eileen and she had just broken off an engagement. She was supposed to go on this like trip with her book club. Everybody that year had to back out. So she decided she's gonna go herself. This is like the first chapter, okay? It's really not much to spoil here. She ends up being transported into the town that her favorite books are set in, with all the characters and all the situations she's read about, and that's how the book starts. And I'm not gonna get too much into it because I don't want to spoil it, but it is a romance, so I feel like you can kind of fill in the blanks. That's one thing I love about romance books is like, it's never like, I'm never really shocked by what's happening, but I'm always loving it. I'm like eating it up, you know what I mean? But basically, she encounters a very grumpy bookstore owner, ruining the whole vibe for her as she's entering her favorite book town. Fill in the blanks, okay? Oh, the sun's coming back. Love that. I love this book. I thought it was so cutesy, and I was just picturing myself being thrown into like my favorite town in a book. Like I'm thinking like, imagine being thrown into Prithian, whisked away to Prithian and Valaris more specifically. That's how I pictured this book the whole time I was reading it. So 5 stars for me. The Dead Romantic. So this is by the same author, Ashley Poston. I was like on, after I read A Novel Love Story, I was like on the Ashley Poston train, obsessed. The Dead Romantics, definitely Definitely different from any book I have ever read before that or since then, honestly. The main character in this book's name is Florence. Florence is a ghostwriter for a famous author. Things take a turn and she ends up having to go back to her hometown, and she is followed by her dead editor. But like the plot twist is she can only see him. That's like her quirk, is like she can see ghosts essentially, but it's a romance. Oh, I should have said this from the jump. I go into most of my books blind. Like typically I don't know what they're about. I don't read little synopsis. I think if anything, that always kills my vibe, and I'm never interested in it because it's very hard to sum up like a really good story. I feel like that's essentially like the premise of the book. It is very odd for so many ways, but like I couldn't put it down either. Like this is probably one of the more like weird books I've read, and not necessarily because it was like weird, but like the main character is like talking to ghosts. It's not even creepy either. That's like endearing, which again, like very odd. But I loved it. I gave this book a 4.7. It didn't hit the 5-star mark for me. I don't know what was missing from it to be like, this is 5 stars for me. I think because of just like that odd little like plot, I just like, it was just something about it. I just like couldn't be like, yes, like 5 stars, but it was still so good. I got a lot of like not on brand books for me. I feel like the first half was a really good mix between like fantasy, romance, just like a mix. This time around, this like second half, I read a lot of romance and just a few like thrillers, which not totally my vibe if I'm being honest. I don't love them, and it's just like weird choices, and maybe that's why I got in my little like reading slump, because I fell off my fantasy. I don't know. I feel like once I started reading fantasy, it was game over. As soon as I picked up ACOTAR and Fourth Wing, my life was done for, as I'd seen it before. The Housemaid is watching. From the jump, when I read the first Housemaid book, it reminded me too much of The Last Mrs. Parrish, and that book, I was like blown away, 5 stars. But The Housemaid is so similar, and if you like read the books, you kind of understand what I'm talking about. So from the jump of reading The Housemaid, I was never a fan really fully of the books, but like I have this thing that like once I start reading like a series or whatever, I have to keep going. Like I can't stop, I can't put it down. Even if I hate it, like I have to finish it. I just can't have something unfinished. I cannot. So I continued throughout the last couple of years reading these Housemaid books. So I read the third one, The Housemaid is Watching. I didn't like this book, not really. Like for the book as it was it good? Yes. But like, did I like it? Not really. That's the thing. Like the book, I can separate like if I like a book or not to saying if it was good or not, if that makes sense. So for that reason, I did rate it a 4. I could not rate it under a 4. But it just continues with that main character's story. But basically, this book is set like after the first few books, where Millie and Enzo and their children move into the suburbs. I only left like the past in the past. If you've read the other books, the past is in the past, or is it? So that's basically like the storyline. As they move into the suburbs, they start working. They have a very odd and like very nosy neighbor who's always watching the neighborhood, making these weird little comments, and Millie starts to like pick up on some things, you know, just with her past. She's very mindful and watchful of the people around her. And that's kind of the story, how it goes. And of course, is there some kind of mystery thriller? Yes. I rated it a 4. Not my favorite. It was good for what it was. Now, I started getting into historical fiction after reading The Nightingale. 5, 6 stars. That book was so good and emotional. After reading The Nightingale, like I was hooked. So then I picked up another book by Kristen Hanna, which is The Women. Guys, 5 stars, 100% 5 stars. Of course, there are happy moments within these books, don't get me wrong, but just really like these books for some reason just really opened my mind to just a different side of reading that I just did not expect to get into in 2024. And I just like, looking back, I'm just so happy I found these books. So basically this story follows this young woman named Frankie McGrath, who becomes a nurse in the Vietnam War. So she goes off to war to become a war nurse. So the story, like I feel like half the book follows her time in Vietnam, in the Vietnam War. She falls in love and she makes these wonderful friends for life in the war. Then the other half of the book follows her life after the war. So just her kind of like recovering and going through the phases of like just what happens after you go to war, and also throughout her time of just like getting adjusted back to normal life, she's realizing that the view that the US and Americans had on the Vietnam War is completely different from like how the war actually was when experiencing it, and just how the people, the everyday people, just don't understand, and the way she's treated when she gets back, those loves of her life, how they are with her. I feel like we've all learned and read the history of all these wars and what happened, and you know, the dates that it happened, but like this really kind of gives you, I know it's like historical fiction, so obviously it's not all accurate, but like, the feelings you feel and how you really just get involved in the story, like it really like gives you this like bigger understanding of what these situations could have been like in real life for so many people. And it really just shows like how your life and experiences really change you as a person over time, and how they like, how what you go through truly does affect you, and your view on life and your view on other people and how you interact, the way people treat you. And it's just like, wow. I love this book. Frankie, I feel like her character was so complex. It really just shows you the complexities of being a person, honestly, and being a woman, and then on top of that adding in going to war, especially at that time as a woman. So if you're taking anything from what I'm saying, and honestly in this video, go read The Nightingale and The Women, because it was so good. And her friends, it just, female friendship is so powerful, and just like watching her interact and the way her friends showed up for her in the war and after the war. And then after that, I like, this was a weird time because we were in Cape Town, so I was just like downloading random books at the time. I downloaded A Love Letter to Whiskey. I thought it was gonna be this like very smooth, easy romance. Guys, I was tossed the fuck around with this book. Do I recommend it? Not really. I gave it like a 3.7 stars. Sorry, this is one of my lowest rating books of the year. So I didn't read what this was about, as I said. Does it typically go in my favor when I like don't read the backs of the books? Yes. Did it this time? No. It did not. I didn't like this book. I really think I like blacked out when I read this book, because I don't remember it at all. Like I actually just looked up like what this was about, because I was like, what am I like not, what didn't I like about this book? And there were a few like tropes in there that I just didn't like. But basically it follows Bea and Jamie over the course of a decade, and their experience of life and love together. Really, it is like that right person, wrong time. And the book basically is a love letter from Bea's perspective to Jamie. Everything that happened throughout the decade. I don't actually know if it was that bad. I think there was just some tropes in there that I didn't like. When you're talking about like a decade's worth of like shit between two people, toxicity is kind of, it just happens. I feel like everything that happened was each other reacting to each other's decisions. So like if Jamie did something, Bea would react and then would go and do something because Jamie did this from the start, and then he would react to whatever she did because he didn't know why she was doing that in the first place. And it was just this like back and forth the whole time. It's so toxic. But I did fly through this book, and I did accidentally download like the anniversary edition or whatever. So I read the experiences from both of them. The author wrote originally just from Bea's perspective, but then the anniversary edition she wrote from Jamie's perspective, and it felt like I was reading the same book twice. And I think that's what also rubbed me the wrong way, because I was like, I don't like this. Like I already didn't like what was happening in a lot of this book, and now I have to read it twice. But I will say, in the end, like I feel like the whole time you're just rooting for these two to like get their shit together. Okay, I'm gonna adjust my rating. I feel like 3.9 is so low, or 3.7. Should we just say 4? That's what I'm gonna say. I don't know if I'm explaining like what this is about well. I just don't want to give anything away, because I feel like if I say anything, it's gonna give it away. Then finally, I actually read a lot of books in July. That's 6 books. I had a lot of time because we went to Cape Town, so I had a lot of time off work. And the job I was working at the time, I read a lot because I had a lot of downtime, so I brought my Kindle to work all the time. August, The Paradise Problem. I gave this like a 4.2, 4.4 stars. I wouldn't say this book was like the most like mind-blowing romance book I've ever read, but it was very fun. I love reading about rich people. I just do. I love hearing about like an experience. I love hearing about private jets and shopping and trips and vacation and people with money. Maybe it's because I didn't have that, and I still don't have that, so it's very fun for me to imagine like life like that. And just like, you know, I love Gossip Girl on the Upper East Side. This is also why I'm currently reading Magnolia Parks. I'm on the last book right now. That's just how far I am into the book. Same thing, like I love it. I can't get enough of it. This book I wouldn't say was like the most mind-blowing romance book I've ever read in my life that I'm like, you have to read. This isn't how I felt about Funny Story. That book, one of my favorite books of the year. You need to go read that book. This book was still good though, but I love like the fake dating trope is always so fun. It's a girl named Anna. She marries this guy named Liam. They did it for both of their like mutual benefit, if you will. They weren't ever like a thing. They never had a thing for each other. She wanted subsidized housing, and then he needed to. I'm pretty sure he did it because it had to do with some like inheritance he was getting if he had been married for like 5 years or something. So when they were in college, they decided to marry each other. It just worked out. She never was involved in like any part of his family, even though they knew he was married. She was never involved in any of it. He pretended, he told stories about her, fake job, fake life, everything. He ends up needing her to be his date to a family wedding, and because that's his wife, she has to go. And that's how it goes. That's how the plot starts. They're off on this like 2-week vacation, fake dating, or fake married, actually. And what do we think happens from there? I ate it up. The Wishing Game. The main character, her name is Lucy. When she was growing up, she read these books. These books were the Clock Island series by Jack Masterson. That is the author's name of those books in this book, if that makes sense. Lucy grows up reading these books. Now she's grown, she's a 26-year-old teacher, and she starts reading these books to one of the children in her class. Long story short, this is all in like the about of the book. Lucy is trying so hard to adopt this child. His name is Christopher. It's like her dream. She wants to adopt him, and this is something they bond over, these books. Jack, the author of these books, had stopped writing for years, but now he's coming out with a new book. He is throwing a contest on his private island. Lucy is one of the ones that is invited. Basically, the catch is you win this one and only copy of the book. Basically, when they arrive on the island, it's full of like a bunch of games and mysteries, and like that is the premise of the books he writes. And basically he creates this like real life version. They can do whatever they want with this book. They can release it, they can publish it, whatever they want to do. That's the story of the book. It was so good. I love a book about a book. It was like honestly such a good fiction book. I think I gave it a 4.5. I said that right? 1,000 Broken Pieces. Guys, this is the second book to 1,000 Boy Kisses. I read this book at the beginning of the year, 1,000 Boy Kisses, and I sobbed. It was one of the most emotional books I have ever read in my life. If you have read it, you know what I'm talking about. The emotions sneak up on you. The author did write a second book. It's basically about the sister of the main character from the first book. I don't want to give away what the story of the first book is, but it basically follows the sister. Savannah ends up on this trip with all these teenagers as they're trying to process their grief and learn ways to cope with it, and they end up going on this like 5-country trip, and each country teaches them a different thing about healing and grief and how to overcome it. And of course there is some romance involved, but it is truly just such an emotional story. I think I cried during this book too. I definitely did, actually. I don't know why I'm saying I think. I definitely did. It was so beautiful. Like, takes you through the emotions of overcoming and dealing with such a difficult thing in your life, and I just love this book. It was such a great book. I think I rated it 5 stars. I should have. Yes, I did. The next book I read is The Revenge Club. I bought it specifically when we were in Cape Town because I liked the way it looked. Martini glass, and it has this like the skewer poking a man as if it was like the olive in a martini, and I loved the way it looked, and I want it on my coffee table or just like propped up on my bookshelf. Basically, I think this is the book that got me into a reading slump. I just didn't like the way it was written. I liked like the plot of it. It was giving very like Sex and the City vibe. It follows these 4 friends who fell apart for so many different reasons in college. They all get older. They're like in their 40s with children, and one of their friends invites them to a brunch. They all need revenge on a man for a different reason. It just like follows these women like becoming friends again and like teaming up against men and plotting revenge, hence the Revenge Club. They called themselves the Revenge Club. I didn't like the way this book was written. I think that's why I didn't like it, and I think this was the start of like the downfall of my reading, because I had to like pick this book up and put it back down throughout like a month or 2 because I was like reading other books alongside it. I was just so bored. I like the plot, like I love the idea of the book, but the way the book was written, I just like could not get through it. Then at the same time, also part of I think why my book slump happened, I read the book High Functioning Anxiety. Completely different from the books I normally read. This book really was about high functioning anxiety, just tools to cope with it, identifying your anxiety, and really like looking inward and figuring out why you might be having this anxiety, why it is high functioning, and how to deal with it. I gave that book a 4.5. However, I'm a fiction, romance, fantasy kind of girl. I really did like the high functioning anxiety book, but I just like any nonfiction, like self-help, I just have such a hard time reading them. I'm just bored. I just get bored. Like when I read, I like to escape. It helps me like leave current reality. This book was really addressing my reality, but I did identify with a lot of what the book was about, and I actually really did enjoy it. I gave the book a 4.5. The only reason I didn't give it a 5 was because it was a lot of repeat of things, and it was starting to annoy me. I was getting really annoyed with like the repetitiveness of the book. Another like thriller, this was actually my pick, Rock, Paper, Scissors. I gave this book a 4.5. Oh my god, it snuck up on me, guys. I like didn't expect to be like thrown the way I was by it, and I'm not going to tell you why, because it will literally give away the entire plot of the book of why I was so shocked. But I'll tell you kind of like what the book is about. The book follows Adam and Amelia are married, and they're upcoming another anniversary, but they're struggling. They have been struggling, they're struggling, just life. But they decide to go away on this trip to Scotland as a way to try to save their marriage, to reconnect, to rekindle, and really go to this remote place. They're going to like this like chapel in the woods essentially, and they both have a bunch of secrets and things they haven't shared with each other, and it all is about to come out while they're away on this trip. But again, it's a mystery, it's a thriller, and I'm getting the chills as I'm talking about it because I just didn't expect this book at all. When I picked this book for book club, and I just did not expect this book to turn out the way it did at all. I don't know what I was expecting, but that's another thing with like books and thrillers. I don't try to know what's gonna happen. I purposely don't. I don't want to predict. I don't want to know what's gonna happen. I want to be surprised. I want to be pleasantly surprised. I just read and turn off that part of my brain that predicts things because it just like ruins it for me. I want to be shocked. I gave this book a 4.5. It wasn't a total 5. I don't know why. Again, sometimes mystery books just like lack that like. Then we get into some of my favorite books of the year. Finally, I started the year with like some of my favorite books, and I ended the year with some of my favorite books. The middle there got a bit boring and a bit weird. The Pumpkin Spice Cafe. I love a cutesy romance. I love a small town vibe, especially set in New England, because I'm from New England. I'm sorry. Pumpkin Spice Cafe. That is what this cafe ends up being called. The Pumpkin Spice Cafe. If you guys love a cutesy, cheesy rom-com book, this book, and the ones following in this little Dream Harbor series, the town is called Dream Harbor. In this Dream Harbor series, it's perfect for you. You're gonna love it. This book is that like grumpy sunshine trope. I don't love that trope personally. It's not my favorite if I'm being honest. I find it boring. I'm like this grumpy man, like get over yourself. I don't know. This book follows a girl named Jeannie, and her aunt gifts her this coffee shop in the town called Dream Harbor. Very small town New England vibes. I picture my hometown when I'm reading this book. But this is basically Jeannie's like chance at a new life. She's been working this desk job, and she's just like bored of her life, and she wants a fresh start. So she moves to Dream Harbor. There's this like cutesy little apartment above the cafe that she moves into that was her aunt's that she now moves into. And then you have Logan, the grumpy local farmer. Jeannie is of course the sunshine, upbeat, girly. Logan is the grumpy grump of the small town. But of course, she comes into this town and completely blows everything open, changes the whole vibe and atmosphere of the town. She disrupts Logan's day-to-day. He was fine being grumpy on his farm until she showed up. And just like, it's so cute and cozy, and I ate it up, and it's cheap on Kindle too. Which then led me right into the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore. This was set in the fall time, and I purposely read these books in the fall because I wanted that like fall New England experience. I got just that. We're introduced to some of these characters in the Pumpkin Spice Cafe, so that you're already familiar with them a little bit, and then you follow their story like in the following books. So the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore. This girl named Hazel, she's cutesy, she's quiet, and she owns this bookstore. We're approaching Hazel's birthday, and this secret message ends up in one of her books. She's trying to solve who left this message in her book. Then it keeps happening. She keeps finding these like random messages and clues in her books. So she enlists Noah, the town fisherman, into helping her solve this mystery. It's just so cutesy and charming and delightful, and I'm obsessed. I gave that book a 4.5. Then you have, oh, another one of my favorites from the year, The Secret Society of Irregular Witches. I gave it a 4.5. Wasn't mind-blowing where it deserved a 5. But I read this because it was like leading into October, Halloween, witches, you know, I felt like it was the perfect cozy fall book. I really went at it with the fall books this year. Seasonal reading, very fun. I definitely recommend it if you haven't done it yet to like read books according to the season. Really puts you in like that like fun, cutesy fall vibe or like Christmas spirit. It's very fun. So this book is about this girl named Mika Moon. She is posting on TikTok and she is a witch. She posts these like fun like little trick witch stuff even though she's actually a witch because nobody's supposed to know that she's a witch. She's a member of this like witch group led by a woman named Primrose. Primrose has always had these rules for all the witches about like living in isolation and not coming together because being a witch and doing witchy things will draw too much attention because the regular human is not supposed to know that you're a witch, of course. But out of nowhere, she ends up getting a message from this family that asked her to come train these like young children witches. Everything gets turned on its head. And it's so good and so cutesy and it was so fun, like that magical element to it. It was so fun. Which then led me to be like, oh my god, I need to read another witch book. The Ex Hex. I saw this on TikTok. I did not like this as much as I liked The Secret Society. It was still very good. It just, I didn't like it as much. And I think because I read them back to back, I was kind of comparing them a lot. I gave this book a 4 stars. This was the only book I read in October. Not me saying that like those 2 books before were like put me in the reading slump. Maybe it wasn't that. Maybe it was just like me. And life got a little hectic for a second because actually around the time I got into my reading slump, we moved and I found out like about my family's kind of like health things and I started a new job and life got busy. So this book follows a girl named Vivian. She's in college and she has a broken heart. She's drinking vodka and she's doing magic because she is a witch. So heartbroken by this man that she put a curse on him, but she didn't think it was real. She was like joking around. Her and her cousin were like going back and forth, kind of just like cursing out this man who broke her heart. Man leaves town. They were in college. He was just here for a few months and then he broke her heart. He has to go back home. He's gone for 10 years, but he notices these like really weird things happening in his life, like just these weird little like blips and issues that keep coming up. He ends up having to go back to the town where he broke this girl's heart. Basically, they end up having to save the town and all the secrets are flowing out and all the problems they have to solve. It was so cutesy. It was really good. I gave it a 4. It just didn't give me that like wow, but I think I was also comparing it to the other book, so my rating is a bit skewed, but I'm not going to change it now. Okay, then December hits and I read this beautiful series and I'm finishing it now in 2025. The Magnolia Parks series. It's giving London, it's giving Gossip Girl, it's giving rich, it's giving money, it's giving toxicity, it's giving all the things you want and more. Not in real life. Obviously, you don't want toxicity in real life, but in a book. So the book goes back and forth between 2 characters. The first book follows Magnolia and BJ, and the next book follows Daisy, Hates, and Christian. So these books kind of like flip-flop between both the girls as like the main character. The story of these books follow the same timeline as the other book, if that makes sense. So the first book follows Magnolia and BJ, the second book follows Christian and Daisy. They don't really overlap in the story. You'll see like some certain things at like parties or like whatever kind of like overlap with each other. Guys, the first book, a bit hard to get through. It was very toxic. Magnolia and BJ being very young, but they can't seem to stay away from each other. So it kind of goes through like her experience with that, but at the end, of course, massive fucking plot twist that turns everything on its head. Then the next book is the Daisy Hates book. I feel like you're either a Magnolia girl or a Daisy girl. I like them both for different reasons, but as the stories went on, I wanted different outcomes for different characters that I don't know if they're the most popular. But in the Daisy books, they follow Daisy and Christian, but also Daisy's brother, Julian, who is a gang lord. So Daisy's life, yes, she is rich and she is like the upper class because of her money, but she's also very sheltered and very rich because her brother's a criminal. So it follows like that side of things too, whereas like Magnolia and BJ and all them just have money because their families are rich. It doesn't sound like much, but it like follows these stories over like the course of like 5 or 6 years of all these characters, and they are so good. So Magnolia Parks, I gave a 4.5. Daisy Hates, I gave a 4.5. And then Again, The Long Way Home, which is the third book, Magnolia's book, I gave a 4.5. And then the other books I read in 2025, so that's not going to be until the next book video, which we'll get into. What, guys? Woo, these books are so good. These books are so good. I've had so much fun reading them and being in this world of like these rich. And then the last book I read of 2024 was The Christmas Tree Farm. This is in that Dream Harbor series that I was talking about with this pumpkin spice and cinnamon bun book. This is The Christmas Tree Farm, so let's take a guess where this was based around. This was based in Christmas time. This book follows a girl named Kira, and she hates Christmas. But her twin sister just got married and she just needs a fresh start from her hometown. She grew up with money, so she ends up buying this Christmas tree farm in Dream Harbor. That's how she rolls up and ends up there. Then you have Bennett, who happens to be Genie, who he is visiting his sister for a month. He's working remote. Bennett decides one day to walk his dogs on this Christmas tree farm that's been abandoned for years. Just so happens this very grumpy new owner, he shows up on the farm and she gets very mad because who is a stranger with his dogs that she is obsessed with on his farm? And it just follows the story of, obviously, Kira and Bennett in this cutesy, winter, Christmassy, cozy book. Great way to end my 2024. I read it in like 3 days. I was obsessed with it. Of course, I love a cheesy book. I love a cheesy rom-com, movie, book. I don't care. It's just who I am. And I'm not ashamed. And I love it. Those were all the books I read in 2024, or the second half of 2024. I'm obsessed. I read about 21 books, I think, the second half. Very weird mix of books I read. Some of them do I recommend 100%? Yes. Others not so much. I will link every book down below. And if you want to see the books I read at the start of the year for more inspiration for you. I read some great books in 2024. I had some favorites. I had some not favorites. Want to see some of my favorite books, or like, do you want to just see like recommendations I have, like, and not just me like rating all the books I've read. Okay, we're gonna end this video here because it is very long. It's getting long. I've been filming over an hour. So I hope you guys enjoyed this book club video. Comment down below some of your favorite books to give me ideas for 2025. And with that, I love you all. And I will see you in the next book club video. Bye!